Welcome to another episode of the No Ego Podcast. It is season 3. And one of my favorite podcasts I listen to is called Dear Sugar. And it's on relationships and life. But Cheryl Strayed, and who I love, incredible writer. And I can't remember her co-host's name. He's fantastic. I wish I did. But anyway, they take letters from listeners, and they use the whole episode to kind of work their way through the letter as a guide to topics to talk about.
Yeah.
So in season 3, I thought it would be fun to take letters from our practitioners of reality-based leadership, because a question just tends to get a same pat answer, but a letter lets us go deeper. So Alex is with me, and he's our Vice President of People Evolution at Reality-Based Leadership. And I want to have some diverse, I don't know how diverse, but different looks at the letters as we unpack them. And I'm hoping in the future, not just hoping, we're planning on bringing some other people in so that you get to know some other folks and their philosophies as well.
Yeah.
So how this works is each podcast, we choose a letter. We always think we're going to do 2 or 3, but we fill it up with just one. And we really appreciate all of you. You're sending us some exquisite
great ones.
letters. And the key to this is that people are not editing their letters. They're just being vulnerable. And it's in that vulnerability that we can help you find some maybe windows you didn't see before, places to explore, things to walk with for a while.
Yeah.
We don't have any answers for you, but we have some, hey, look here, look there,
Absolutely.
see what we might have. So today's letter comes from, I got to see if it's anonymous. What I loved about it is this person first heard me speak in 2004 or 5.
That was cool.
Isn't that cool? That is 14 years. I forget that I've been around for a little bit. They heard me speak in Des Moines, and it was
a family readiness conference. That would have been amazing to know what
really
you talked about.
So at the time, one of my favorite people in the world, Steve Saunders, who ended up like 3-star general in the National Guard. But at the time, he was my first introduction into the National Guard, and at the time served and ended up as the ops tempo really increased in those time periods. He served, I think, in Afghanistan, some other places. Anyways, he was my business partner at the time. Fantastic guy, really helped set me up for success. So we got to do some incredible work with the National Guard, and one of the things that they like to do is have a family readiness conference for their family members. They have whole programs for family support, because if you think about your readiness level, your soldier, whether, if they're in the Guard, you just never know when they might be deployed.
Absolutely.
And talk about a level of readiness where you are taking over. If you have kids, it's all childcare, it's dog duty, it's trying to keep a house
household
up,
chores,
bills paid. Whew. It's really a tough thing for those family members. So thank you, all of the family members that are there supporting our military folks. But that's what a family readiness conference is.
Amazing.
Is what tools and techniques we can give people to, move through that new reality as least disruptive as possible. So she talks about first hearing me speak in 2004 and 5, and then gives me some history before her question. But the cool thing about this is, and I just want to tell you, Anonymous, that I'm so proud of you, because she just completed or is completing her associate degree in early childhood development or early childhood. And it's exciting to me because she did this as an act of self-care after her son had an accident, which I can only imagine took a lot of focus and a lot of caregiving.
Yeah.
And so she says that I began going to college for early childhood the fall of 2016. And she decided to do something for herself and get an associate's degree. And man, she did the grind.
And broke it up. Yeah. 2 courses per semester, 1 course in the summer. I appreciate that so much when people, make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's graduating after all of this time, just doing the, 2 courses or 1 course at a time. It's been a grind. She graduates, the fall of 2020.
Yeah.
So hopefully that is exciting news. So I want to point out that you absolutely rock. So many people talk about, like, I want to go do this, but it would take 5 years. And my comment often is those 5 years will pass whether you're doing it or not.
Yes.
The only difference will be when 5 years passes, whether you're a graduate or not. And so a lot of us are like, well, I want to wait for this. I want to wait for these circumstances. So she did not. She just did it. So she's been working in the child care field for 11 years. And 3 of those years, she was in a small center, 7 years doing some in-home stuff. And now she's working in a large center. And man, flexible. She says, I've been subbing and floating for, different roles that they need help with in this center. And she'll do anything from lessons from a pre-K class 1 week and a 3-year-old the next. And, helping out because they have some teachers and assistants out with medical needs. Okay, so now you rock for being a military family, and you rock for taking the long way to college. And I'm just like loving you, and you're flexible.
First paragraph's all rock star stuff.
So first paragraph, rock star stuff, and I summarized. Now, she said she's been doing everything, even subbing in the kitchen, and subbing for the head cook who's been out ill. So here's the dilemma. We're getting to the question. Last week, she says, I was told that I'm now the head cook in the kitchen, effective immediately. And the previous head cook will now be my assistant, and she's going to be working 8 to 3 while I work 6:45 to 3:45. I'll do all the ordering of supplies along with the daily ins and outs of the kitchen. So the assistant cook will do the baking and other tasks assigned. And here's her concern. Have I worked this hard with college courses to be a cook? You might even put just a cook in there. She didn't. Yeah. But we hear the word just a cook a lot. Do not get me wrong. I enjoy the job. I get to interact with more children throughout the day, which is amazing. It is a really big responsibility with food allergies and ordering and having meals and snacks on the table on time. I'm torn between a great opportunity and applying the education I have worked so hard to obtain. Any input or advice would be welcome. Oh, this is a good one. The last podcast, if you listen to our last podcast, I talked a lot about people who ask me, like, how do I figure out what I want to be in life? And like, how do I go out and find that job of my dreams? How do I score the perfect thing? And I said, it's really a balance between going out to find and a balance of being found. And then what you make of the opportunities that find you. So it's kind of like when you get married, you pursued a partner, right? And they found you. But the marriage you create, really, both of you were wrong. Like both of you, what you thought a perfect partner was and what they thought, like both of you are wrong. And so this just reminds me of that we, life is what happens when we put our own plans aside and go with the flow, which is a balance between not being too passive and not going after your dreams, like grinding through school. Yeah. But what sticks out to you in this letter?
I think it's some good stuff to get into. And where I go back to the top of it, where obviously there's this new transition that there's not a lot of detail on, but now moving from being, which it sounded like she was once the assistant, and then this head cook has been ill, so now she's taking over. So it sounds like you want to watch and see if there could be a challenge there with the shift in responsibilities. We don't have much info if that's going well yet, or if as you become more the leader in that situation, at least with divvying out some of the tasks. But I think it's just getting some clarity on what are the daily ins and outs that you'll be taking over, and maybe just starting that conversation just to make sure that's clear with the person that's returning.
I would build on that because I think that there are definitely some conversations to have. So somebody went from a head cook, and hopefully it was in their favor if they were able to stay on and do the baking and the things they loved, but be assistant, have a little less of a schedule. Hopefully that was a nice move.
For what they needed,
Yeah. One of the things that I find is, especially when you're kind of given a job, you can get into either or pretty quickly. Yeah. It's like, do I be a teacher or a cook? Teacher or head cook? is this what I worked for? And the ego, whenever the ego gets fearful, it's going to make a choice. It starts to really limit your options and take out and really put in or, right? And I heard that definitely in here. It was kind of an either or situation. And when we get either or, check for fear, check for ego. Because one of the things I thought is, so you were given this position, head cook. It's a great opportunity. It sounds like it's full-time. It sounds like there's a lot to enjoy about the job. It doesn't mean you have to take things as given.
Yeah, interesting.
What's interesting and I loved is that this person was very quick to pull out, actually, if I look at what I love to do, feeding children is a really optimal time for them. It's a very caring place. It is complex. There's a lot of teaching to do about nutrition and manners. And so our ego can say, do I want to teach or cook? And she started in on the ands, like, it's not that this isn't a early childhood role, and it's not a teaching role.
Yeah.
Because I think you could make this role into something pretty amazing.
Exactly.
About teaching, about nutrition, manners, sharing. Like, I think you could become like the cook who teaches.
Yeah.
And you could, even if you're a little bit worried about not building a resume, you could talk about a change even in that job description or titling to not really mess with their pay grades and stuff, not to be the special, person, but to just say, can we really, if I can be in this role, can we really make it into a teaching kind of, how can I maximize this experience? Yeah. And by the way, tons of innovation, because what if you could come up with a program that was just like a weekly program that you could help other daycares with, that they were
That's
kind of
super powerful.
Isn't that so? It goes back to, if you're not an either or, and your ego will do that. Do I want to be a teacher or a head cook? Did I come all this way just to be
a cook?
A cook. Yeah. You got to find the and in there. How could, as a cook, I have great impact into the early childhood years of kids? I think huge impact. Yeah. Did I come all this way to be a cook? Well, maybe for a year, maybe for 3 years. Our ego gets all or. Like, if I pick this, I probably will not get another chance ever in my lifetime. Like, do I want to give up all my chances, or do I want to keep them open? So she's not in there locked in yet. She's in the and. You can hear it go back and forth.
Yeah. You know what you got me thinking about is you took me back in that to when I was in daycares. Like, I can actually still remember some of those times when when I was young, was in one of these centers similar. And some of the people I talked to the most, because I love food so much, was the cooks. And
you're always wanting to get more food.
The morning was good from 8 to 10:30, but the moment it was starting to get closer to lunchtime, that classroom or what we were doing or playing in wasn't the best for me when you're thinking about food. But then I remember connecting so much with people doing that and actually having conversations with them. And I just think that's a moment where kids, they're in a different approach, different just perspective, where you could have teaching moments and you can have learn about their life or what they're struggling with, no matter what age they are. So that's interesting.
It's so interesting. I was just reading an article, and I'm going to get better at writing these down, because people are like, what article? I fly a lot, so I scan a lot of articles online. But I was reading an article that said for kids, it was on NPR in this last week. And they talked about, kids that are coming from homes where parents or older siblings have some addiction struggles. So they're moving through, some addiction challenges, and they have a camp where kids can come and just really be around other folks, and they get to be kids again.
Yeah.
And they also talked about, a psychologist was talking about what's important to a kid in that moment. And it is like a single person who reaches out and lets the kid be a kid and connects with them in a way that simply takes interest in them.
Wow.
With no expectations, no trying to teach them anything, just really create space for them to be a kid and get their needs met, meets needs for them that other, maybe at the time their parents can't meet for them.
A well-cooked meal or
You're reminding
a great dessert.
You're reminding me of a very tough time in my life.
Interesting.
3rd grade. And in 3rd grade, I had a lot of people that like teased me for whatever. There's a bit of bullying going on. And in our school, 3rd and 4th grade was overflow. We didn't have enough room in one building.
Oh.
And we also had a lot of communities that came together. So they took the 3rd and 4th grade and they put them in an elementary school building like 5 miles away from our main town. So you had the bus experience and that whole thing. It was cool. And I started to really get bullied, and I was just starting to I think it was a little bit gender issue. We just started like multiplication, and you would have these timetables you would lay over a sheet. And remember, it was a race where you did multiplication.
Like 1 minute, you gotta, I remember that.
And the boys, there's these 3 boys that are really used to winning, and you guys are friends now. You'll know who you are. They were usually used to winning, and I just kind of came out of nowhere, and I was good.
Yeah.
And so I was always like first or second, but then I got kind of picked on. And the 2 most important people in my life were the janitor. It's 45 years later. I remember his name, Roy Bowler. And the cook, and her name was Frida, and she had another awesome woman with her. And I tell you what, dark days, light moments were those 2 people. I was a really good student, so I got some freedom to kind of come and go to the library as I wanted. But I tell you what, like Frida, first of all, made homemade cinnamon rolls. Everything she did was like pure love, and I too love food. That speaks my language. My grandmother gave me such amazing banana bread and food. And it was just, she took time with every kid that went through that line. She kind of knew who your parents were. We were in a small town, but I remember, like, she even broke the rules for you. Like, I really loved fish sandwiches, and you only got one. But, there were times, like, if you were really hungry, she'd, like, let you go back and get, like, another one. And then Roy Bowler, the janitor, when I wouldn't want to go out for recess, he would kind of pick up on that. And he would take me, let me come down to kind of this basement area. This is all kinds of red flags for parents today. Nothing happened, Roy. But he would we would go down and we would play checkers. And I was really good at checkers, and I'm sure he let me win a lot. But when I didn't want to go out to some of the bullying on the playground, I'm sure those teachers were communicating, right? They knew where I was. It wasn't like, they let one of their kids disappear. It just wasn't like that at all. I got to go down and play, and I'm an introvert. I got time away, played checkers with Roy Bowler, and that really made my 3rd and 4th grade year. Yeah. So my message to you, all of you, when you go, I have this degree, but I'm just or did I work this hard to be this?
Just whatever.
I want you to quit separating that out. That's ego stuff. You can always make a difference. And it's cliche, but it's like bloom where you're planted. What if that job put you in the perfect position to connect with kids who are not having their guard up? There's no pressure. They're not in a classroom situation. What if that was the place that you could do the work you're supposed to do in the world? We struggle with titles here at our company. We struggle with titles.
For it. Yeah.
It really is. We struggle with titles because I'm just like, be a do-gooder, but the world needs you to have titles.
Yeah.
So we come up with just almost titles that we just make up on the fly. Like one of our people's title is Chief Happiness Officer. You know what he does? Soon he's bringing us Indian food. He does whatever needs running. You could look at his job and be like, least important job in the building, most important job in the building.
So true.
And so I really love where you're going with this. I don't think you need to decide if you worked that hard to be a head cook. I want you to decide that you worked that hard to be great at whatever you do in the midst of children.
Yeah.
And if you change that to your life's work, we work hard to get this title. But if we work hard to do our life's work, regardless of what it looks like the Buddhists say, doing the dishes is, can be the most profound act of enlightenment. You could just study that for a while. And so that's what I thought of is 1, I think you can have great impact. 2, I don't think it's career limiting. 3, I think you can potentially help them help you rewrite that job description a little bit. Like, instead of head cook, it would be like early childhood nutrition, specialist or educator or whatever that might be, since you're supervising. But for our listeners, really be careful about, I will be happy when, I worked this hard for. Life's not transactional.
Yeah.
Do the hard work because you love the learning. Do the hard work because you want to make a difference. And then if something has the wrappings of being great in some ways, like seems to be a great opportunity, then settle in, go in wholehearted and reap your rewards there. And then commit to it for a year. And then each year just look at it and say, is there something else I want to do? And the universe has a way of taking care of people who go in all in.
Yeah.
Like the next opportunity will tap
now.
you on the shoulder. You don't have to hustle and search as much as Instagram in this economy tells you that things happen because of you. There's a lot of stuff that already happened for you that you need to step fully into.
Another thing I would add to that is back on the just being a cook. I grew up as an athlete, and one of my favorite things to do that I still do quite often is parents will come and say, my kid is starting to get recruited and they have a lot of extra stress, or, they're really trying to get through the mental side of their sport. And what I found is if I go in and you just talk to the kid, it's a little awkward. But what I always do is I played all these different sports, is like, if I'm going to go talk to a kid and he likes baseball or she likes softball, I'll bring my glove and we start playing catch. And then it brings it could take 10 minutes. It could be nothing the first time, or we'll go shoot baskets. And I just do that. And then eventually we get into a conversation about life. And then I can eventually get into some questions around, how's this going for you? If it's about recruiting. And I feel like what I'm saying that for is there's always this container I can get in, which is why I like sports so much. The ball field, basketball court.
It's a container.
And it's a container just like the kitchen or this area where you work. And from there, then you take all of your experiences you now have with your education and think of that as a classroom, or that as, and that's where it gets really fun, is there are moments where by giving someone a great piece of banana bread and putting a few blueberries on it, where a kid that doesn't know anything about healthy fruits, you're like, maybe you'll try it this way. It's really tasty. And then you can start a conversation and educate.
This could be life-changing.
It really can be. And now that you went there, I saw that in an approach that, not even a strategy, it's like an ego bypass in a way with food.
It is. I'm getting it.
It's like when I lived in England, everyone starts with a tea. You like offer someone tea, and we do this everywhere. And then you just get into it, and it's like a way to start that conversation, and then from there use all your new skills. That's the big and.
Do you remember when I gave my TEDx talk in Omaha? There was a speaker who had done a lot in the military. He was security. I'm trying to remember his name. He was awesome. And he was sharing his time in Afghanistan, that in order to do what they needed to do security-wise, they really had to enter into relationships. And it started with tea.
Yeah.
It was like entering into somebody else's world to kind of find that portal and grant that permission. And how do we do that? Through tea with no expectations. It's not the traditional classroom. It makes me wonder, like, what if instead of one-on-ones where we bring you into our office, what if we just said, what do you like doing and what can I join you with? Do you want to go for a walk, or do you want to, like, what if our one-on-ones, instead of bringing people into our world, we actually did more of going into their worlds? I know as a social worker, we tried to do that, to go into someone's home environment. If I wanted to help them with parenting, it's easier to do it right in their own environment, right? And so there's less translation. I tend to be a maximizer. That's one of my strengths on the Strengths Finder. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that you take that head cook job. I want to tell you what to do, but you develop a whole curriculum that everything is experiential learning. And you start to even have little, like jobs that kids can do where they learn some responsibility, and you can gamify it. And there's like different learning. There's different levels they can get. There's different ways. Like some of their prizes are, choosing the best foods. Like, I don't want to overcomplicate your job, but this thing could even come to the point where now you've developed a curriculum.
I like to ask Sinai this question.
Then you are selling to other daycare centers. Like you become
call it just a cook.
Call it just a cook, or my mind goes to crazy stuff like interview everybody about the most important people in their school and see how many were not teachers. Right?
Yeah.
And what lessons that people learn. That'd be a great book or a podcast. It would be a cool podcast. Roy's passed away, and I'm sure Frida is too. She was elderly when I had her. Yeah. But wouldn't that be cool to go back and surprise people who had the biggest difference in your life? And they probably had no idea that playing checkers to me, I became a very committed and good student. And I would tell you at the time, the people that were harassing me and bullying me were males. And having like Roy and Frida and those places where people believed in you, I think that was a pivotal moment for me. I could have dumped myself down and taken a different path in school.
Yeah.
Or I was able to kind of stand
conflict
because I don't like conflict. I was able to kind of stand up and say, I'm going to claim my spot here.
Another thing to add, I love that, is I was surprised at how much, that triangle you used to learn in nutrition back.
Oh,
that was
the
like
one that's
12,
wrong.
Kids are supposed to have 12 slices of bread a day, and then
the one sponsored by the grain and dairy industry.
And I know this has changed a lot, probably, but I've been surprised how much through sports I finally got educated on what you should be eating.
Yeah.
And a lot of these kids, I bet there's a big opportunity where parents just aren't able to do that, or through your own creative ways to add fruits to certain things that are easily eaten, or there's just so much opportunity to educate and help kids that won't get that education that it took me forever to learn that through my sporting background to finally understand that, proteins, carbs, what gives you energy,
to establish
what wears you out, what.
We talked in another podcast about self-care and nutrition. So many things we don't get in school, and I know this is daycare with younger folks, but so many things we don't get is that how to care for ourselves. And that's kind of the missing education. Jerry Seinfeld's wife wrote a book. I think one of you guys gave it to me. One of my nannies gave it to me for Christmas, about how to basically hide vegetables in every dish, right? Now my kids are really good vegetable eaters. I didn't have to do that. My kids grew up.
That's interesting.
We ran a bed and breakfast, so my kids grew up with Brussels sprouts and all kinds of stuff. Not because I was a great mom, let me just go on record, but because we had leftovers from what other adults ordered. I wish I was more nutrition focused when I was then.
Yeah.
If I knew then what I know now.
Well, for bed and breakfast, that's maximizing the profits on that.
Yeah, it is. Feed your kids for a week with the leftovers. But at the time, we were just blending our families, and so my stepkids didn't have that same affinity for vegetables, right? So they had more of an affinity for sweets, and I think genetically we're different, right? Too. So there are these books out there, that I really think you could really find ways to feel good about what you're doing with the people that or the kids that you're serving.
And fulfilling your passion, of helping kids.
And I think the key to this is wholeheartedness. If you're going to do it, do it. Otherwise, don't. Don't go in going, well, I'll fill a role for a while. That's just I'll be married for a while. Fill the role. Go in and do it. And through that wholeheartedness, you're going to help a lot of people, but you're also going to be changed yourself.
And you get good data on, is this right for you? Is it?
And you'll be ready for what's next. It's not forever, it's for now.
Yeah.
And so I think it's exciting. I think if it were me, so many things she's excited about. I'm assuming it's she, maybe it's he, that said this could be really good. The only thing that's holding up, because if you read this, it's really good. It's I enjoy the job. I get to act with more children throughout the day, which is amazing. She uses these words. It's a really big responsibility because there's food allergies and orderings, and you got to have meals and snacks on the table on time. And so I'm torn between what she calls a great opportunity and applying the education I've worked so hard to attain. That's your ego. When the world is taking you where you need to go, the number one thing that will get in your way is your ego.
Yeah.
That is an ego statement. Oh my gosh, it could be amazing. I'll interact with kids. And your ego's like, yeah, is that really why you went to school? It is your ego. That is such an ego statement. So I would really question my thinking, because your answer could be absolutely, it's why I went to school, is so that I can make any interaction richer. I can enrich any interaction for our kids and at a competitive advantage. Because today, if I had kids, I was looking at daycare centers, and I got introduced to the head cook, who didn't tell me what food they served as much as she told me about the experiences they try and create for kids
through food,
through
that environment.
I mean, that to me would be a deciding factor of where I put my child, right? Because I know today how important that is. So I think it's just really good stuff.
Yeah.
Take the job, make it great.
Absolutely.
But watch out for our ego, because it's our ego that says, what you have isn't quite good enough. And is this really, that ego is that place in you where it's like, finds insult where there isn't any, right?
And
it's like, I did all this work for a head cook job. Like, why is there insult in a head cook job?
Well, and step into, because I think this could be partly my story, but there's going to be people in your family, people that know you're pursuing this degree, that'll ask that, like, you just finished,
you really just
and you're just
that?
still going to be a cook.
That's a great point.
Step into and get clear with however you can. Once you've
great
reflected
response
on
to
this
that.
is absolutely.
Yeah.
And
get good with that, because your hesitancy, you're going to have to revisit this until you get good with it.
Yeah, that'll be her lesson.
I thought you were studying early childhood, and now you're
still
a head cook?
Yeah.
You go, oh my gosh.
Until that's an absolutely.
Yeah. Yes. In fact, I chose to take this role because I think it's a really new, innovative way to impact child's lives in their early years.
Yeah.
With nutrition.
Absolutely.
And if you don't believe the impact you can have, ask anybody some of their most special moments, and they will connect it with food. You connected it with food. I know I have a nephew who, whenever I see him, he brings up stuff I fed him when he was little. He was going through kind of a hard time. And he doesn't really remember our amazing conversations, but I know they were there because he remembers.
So true.
He liked ketchup with mayo mixed together, which now is a big thing. They even sell it.
We're thinking he might have invented it back in the day.
And everybody else just saw that as extravagant. They would fight this poor kid on ketchup and mayo. And I think they were worried, in my family, we all get a little chunky before we grow tall. Some of us then get chunky again. It's a long story. But I think they were a little worried about his weight. And so people would deny him. And I'm just like, fill that plate up with ketchup and mayo.
Good move.
If that is what you need right now, child, let's get you that, right? And so I think it's important. And for the rest of you who aren't making a job decision, I want you to listen for the word just. Because I hear people introduce themselves all the time. I really want to be this. Right now, I'm just this. I want you to go,
so powerful.
I am an amazing this in my current position. And I'm hoping to just continue to develop into another job I'm interested in. Quit defining yourself. Quit naming things too soon. Stay curious a bit longer. And a lot of people who are newly looking for a job, they'll come to me and they'll go, well, how do I find the job I want? And a lot of it is you're trying to do it without any information, just imagination. And I'm like, take the best of what comes and then just keep upcycling. Like, take the best of what comes, not just to pay the rent, but go deep into that.
Yeah.
And then that will lead you to your next step. When I look back at my life, I never intended to be sitting here with you podcasting, owning a company, but I said some wholehearted yeses to things. And my path was kind of a crooked path, but now it's starting to make sense, because when I get up to talk, I go, oh, that's why I was asked to lead a nursing unit. That's why I was, put in that position. That's why I was born into a family who ran their own business and were entrepreneurs. In the moment, you can't see its connection to the plan. But I think as the more you age, you'll start to see where you collect information, you form something, you collect information, you form something better.
Yeah.
But you got to go wide before you can go up,
so to speak. And just along with that, what I found in my life is for a while, and it comes back where you're seeking to be the next thing, but until you are able to just be a cook well, it'll never, I'm not going to say never, but it's hard to open up that next step.
Yeah.
That looks like an upgrade.
Or you get it.
If you can't just do the dishes, which that goes so deep, like in a marriage, it's key.
It's key. And a lot of times we aren't enjoying the now because the minute we get it, it's not as satisfying as we thought. And we want the next. But the reason it's not as satisfying as we thought, we blame the job. But we've got to take accountability for we didn't go deep in the job and find the joy in it.
Learn all we could from it. Yeah.
So it's always a partnership. It's always a partnership. So I look forward. These kids are lucky to have you. These kids are lucky to have you. I hope you take the job. I hope you love it. I hope you let us know how it turns out. I hope you have a great new best-selling curriculum on how to make food an educational experience in the kitchen. So perfect. Folks, thank you for your letters, especially people who remind me of the good old days back when we were doing family readiness programs. I haven't thought of Steve for a little while. He was such a great business partner, brilliant man.
Love it.
This is all good stuff. Send us your letters. Pass this podcast on to people that you find are a little discontented with the job they have and looking for the job they want. Settle. You can do both. It's the big and. I can go deep and love the job I have and trust that with a little bit of looking and a little bit of being willing to be found, a little bit of allowing, things can be really, really good. Enjoy your week.
Take care.